Hello, my name is Chris Thomas. Welcome to my channel. This video you're about to see is the first of a series of videos that will be on safe locations against the pole shift for Canada. Now I have done, I believe it's 14 videos for the United States safe locations. Now I started with the United States because up until I started my safe location series, before that I had produced a few videos, desktop videos like this, on other subjects about Planet X. I think about 4 or 5 of them, and I noticed that 70% of my viewership was from the US. So that's why I started with the US. So now I'm doing Canada. Now after Canada I'll be doing the UK, and then after the UK I'll be moving on to other countries. But for now, this video will be about BC and Vancouver Island. I may add other bits to the video, I'm not sure, but primarily it will be about the safe locations in BC and Vancouver Island. But before I start on that, I wanted to give you, the viewer, the benefit of my experience and study on Planet X. And now I've done a lot of work with reporting on Planet X. I had Planet X newsletter. I produced 18 issues from 2009 to 2011, and I also run a Facebook group, Surviving the Pole Shift, advising people on the pole shift and Planet X, and also I have a website, and I've done some other writing about Planet X. So I have a lot of experience in reporting on Planet X. But I'm going to try to keep this introduction about Planet X to a minimum, and I want to do the introduction because I suspect that because this video is about Canada, then there will be a lot of Canadians watching the video. Now I'm Canadian, I live on Vancouver Island. So Planet X has a massive history when you know how to find it. Now that is to say, when you look on the internet for historical papers, you can read it in old religious writings from different persuasions, shall we say. You can find references in standard history, but you have to know what you're looking for, because the subject of Planet X is verboten. Many scientists have died trying to expose the truth about Planet X. Now I'm going to stick to Planet X as much as I can here without delving into other aspects. So Planet X is a dwarf star. It is 23 times the mass of Earth and 4 times its physical size. Now I take information from zetatalk.com, and I process it and reduce it and apply it and use common sense and use my own terms to explain the phenomena of Planet X. So I just wanted to say that because I do rely heavily on Planet X for information. Now I draw my own conclusions, but I do rely on Zetatalk. So moving on. So Planet X is not just a planet. It is has a very large system of moons that orbit on 2 tails that exude from the corpus that look like horns, which is why the Chinese dragon has horns, because the Chinese dragon is an old symbol of Planet X. Now there are many other examples I could go into, but that is one of them. As I said, Planet X has a very large influence on our cultures and our history. Now also, Planet X has a very large trash tail. In it is many asteroids, broken up asteroids, iron oxide dust, and some other components. It is said to be 5 million miles long, and it has many moons that follow Planet X on its trajectory between our sun's binary twin here and our sun. It's very common for stars to have a binary twin. Our binary twin is a covered up, denied existence. As of 2016, early this year, they talked about, they being NASA, talked about discovering a planet and they call it Planet 9, but really what it is, it's the sun's binary twin. They lie, and lie. You can't count on NASA to tell the truth. Any government agency in any country to tell the truth about Planet X or the pole shift. The reason for that is pretty obvious, but it's quite deep to explain. So, Planet X orbits between our sun's binary twin, which is dark or dead, and our sun. Now, a long time ago, it was said, I did a series. If you do a search or look at my page on YouTube, you'll find a series I did on the ancient and modern history of Planet X. All this information is in there. But Planet X was caught somehow in the early universe, orbiting between these two binary twins. The way it works is it started somewhere, got caught in the gravitational pull. So let's say it starts here. Now the dark blue is the incoming. So what happens? It moves between the two binary twins and is more or less, let's call it a straight line for now. And as it gets closer, it speeds up very fast. As it comes in close, it slows down because of a repulsion force between the two planets. Don't forget, it's quite a heavy planet. And it takes a long time to go through our inner solar system because of all the forces on the ecliptic there. Once it is released from the ecliptic, gets high enough. When it gets high enough, now this is its incoming path that I plotted, but once it gets high enough, that's where it's able to move to leave. So that's where it's going now. It's going up here, only over here. It's going there, and once it gets through all this, boom, out she goes. So as it passes Earth, its magnetics lock on the core of Earth, and Earth's moon-size iron nickel core does an adjustment and moves with Planet X as it quickly leaves. And what happens, the pole shift starts, and the crust first doesn't move at first. The core moves first, then the crust moves. That's the crustal shift. And it separates because there's molten magma between the core and the outer crystallized outer crust of Earth. That's the essential. So out it goes, and what happens now, it can only go out so far, then have to turn around and come back because of the pull of our sun. It comes back in very fast, slows, it does the same thing, and what happens is it goes around the sun and zooms out because there's another gravitational force over here. So out it goes, and then it gets pulled towards that, and it repeats it. Goes out, oops, and then it has to come back, oops, goes by, oh, here's another gravitational pull. So it's got this cycle to it. This cycle is known to be somewhere around 3,650 years. So that is the basic cycle of how it works. Now, it was photographed in deep space 2002 before it entered, which was about here. That's why there's a black background, because it's the only time you can see Planet X with a black background. Keep this in mind. It's because it was incoming at the time. So this was photographed by somebody in Arkansas in the backyard, an amateur astrologer. There's a dark background. It's an incoming Planet X. You can see the trash tail, the moons. Genuine image off of Zeta Talk. This is its trajectory. I plotted this on other information, and so it has to get high in order to get in. So therefore, it has to get high to get out. So that's solar system north at 20 degrees. So in the past, it was okay to talk about Planet X. Here is a drawing. It's called a three-headed Azoth, and it is a concept drawn to reveal Planet X. I think the 1500s. I think. Notice that the tail of the three-headed Azoth is holding the moon and the sun, but not Planet X. This is Planet X here. There's a moon, the sun, and Planet X. Here are the horns. These are the moon tails. That's why I said earlier the Chinese dragon is because of the redness of Planet X and also the tails. Now, Planet X is also known as a planet of the crossing, which is why this is placed here. Now notice that one of the arms that's holding Planet X is not constricted by the tail. And so this is revealing the fact that Planet X comes and goes from the solar system on its own. So it's not held down the way the moon and the sun was perceived to be. So that's an old drawing. I just wanted to touch on that because just trying to give you an ancient overview and a conceptual overview here. Now let's go to the present day. This is taken in February 2015 by Folk Photographer. This is a video. Halifax. Here's the sun. This is a fog bank, by the way. Here's the sun reflecting off the water in Halifax Harbor, probably Halifax Harbor. And here we have a lobe on the side of the sun, very bright. Now out here you have artifacts and lens flares out here. Now, lens flares are completely reliant on the sun's effect on inside the camera, of the brilliance of the sun producing these artifacts on the pickup, the digital pickup. And they cannot, lens flares are empty. There's nothing real about them. They cannot reflect light off water, for example. Now here we have the sun, as I said, nice and bright, reflecting off the water. Here we have the lobe. Look below the lobe, what do you see here? Reflection off the water. Now that means that this is a real celestial object. It's not Venus and it's not Mercury. They don't get in that close. Well, they do, but you never see them. The sun is too bright. But in this case, the conditions were right, and you can see the reflection off the water.
WordPress.com, you can see a lot more amazing videos that I've done. Wait till you see this.
See, this is a video. The best way to see a genuine catch of Planet X is a video, not an image. Image can be falsified. This you can't. This is real.
Now, if that was a reflection, there wouldn't be clouds in front of the second sun.
So here you see down here, reflection
off
off the water.
Sunset.
Right there.
.wordpress.com.
Right there.
You can see a lot more amazing videos that I've done.
So that is proof positive that Planet X is in the solar system. Now there's a reason why Planet X is seen close to the sun. Please refer to my other videos. I'll leave those links in explaining why it is that Planet X is always seen close into the sun and never out here. Never out. If you see an object out here, it ain't Planet X. It's only when it's close in like that. So that is what brought you up to date on the existence of Planet X in the solar system right now. It's being covered up by the governments of the world. Now, you can believe that or not. It doesn't matter. Everyone will have to deal with the pole shift. So just wanted to give you that overview on Planet X, and so right now we're going to move to the coverage on BC safe locations. Okay, let's take a look at British Columbia, Canada. Here you can see the history of various layers being generated by the subducting plates of the Pacific Ocean being pushed under the North American continent. They go back to about 400 million years for the oldest, roughly. So you've got the foreland belt, which you'll see is reflected in my safe location map for BC, and so the layers become newer as you move to the west. Now, the coast of BC is quite complex. Its construction is complex, but it's explainable. So now on the outer area you have what they call the insular belt, which really is developed from a series of old continents that have collided with the North American continent. Now that's reflected in this video, not a video, this simple image here of a particular continent at one time was called Rangelia, and this was, I think this is about 300 million years ago, and it slowly migrated northeast through the Pacific Ocean, and eventually collided in BC to form part of the BC coast. Some of it also is up here in Alaska as well, and Yukon. It must have split up at some point, but it collided and became jammed into North America. Now there's a hint here that because it's its own continent and it's very old rock, is that it's because that's why Vancouver Island in particular is a safe location, and I believe the same can be said of Haida Gwaii. But that's this shows you the history of Rangelia, which I'll get to shortly. Now, so you've got this these accretions from at least 3 different sources. One of them is called the Yucatan. Actually, this map doesn't give you that. It's this one that does. So you've got the light green here. That was one continent at one time called the Yucatan. And then you've got the Alexander, which is the purple. And then you've got Rangelia, which is been split up. You find Rangelia up here. WR. So Rangelia is up here as well. So, and interestingly, Rangelia is also compressed and become part of the BC coast, the proper BC coast. Now, So the construction of the geological construction of the coast, I guess, really doesn't matter essentially, other than to go into the future, the near future of Vancouver Island and Haida Gwaii, because a person does not really want to be on this coast when the Pacific begins to subduct. Now, as it happens, Vancouver Island and Haida Gwaii, being Rangelia, will actually float above the action. So as the Pacific floor is being driven under North America, Rangelia floats over top of it. So the coast is going to still take a hit, although I do believe that the subduction won't be as bad, unless it's you're in here in Bella Bella or Prince Rupert in here. Those towns are done for, completely done for, as is Vancouver. But anyways, with the subduction being insulated somewhat by the Rangelia, I still think that the coastal areas here will have a great deal of action, and you'll see why in a minute. So now I want to just back up just a bit, and I did some layers on this map, and you can see them here, just to give you a good overview as to what's happening to North America, and why this is has a good impact actually on British Columbia. So you have the North American continent edge being represented here by the blue dots. North American continent is huge. It goes over to Russia. It goes. It's under the Atlantic, and it goes way over. Includes Greenland. It's just a massive plate. Now compare that to the Caribbean plate here, which has a very tough time during the pole shift. A little small plate like that. So now let me just back up. I apologize. I want to back up again. I want you to see the sea floor in this area here. Now here you can see the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Very magnetic, by the way. See one of my other videos of that. Now, by the way, if you know anything about the pole shift, you know that we have rotation stoppage. There's a reason right there. That's why you have rotation stoppage, because the magnet locks onto planet X as it gets close enough and stops Earth rotation. So, however, in studying for this video, I noticed a seam here. I've seen it before, but I didn't. But now you see the seam right here. This seam, I believe, has to extend into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. You'll see why shortly. So we have, we know through Zeta Talk that the eastern seaboard will, during the pole shift, basically split off from North American plate. And that seam I was just showing you is just a little foreshadowing, shall I say, of what we know is going to happen. Now, I drew this line. Normally, the line stops here. If you look on the internet for the New Madrid fault line, it stops here. But why would it stop there? It's splitting off part of the North American plate. So it's not going to stop there. It goes out into here, and then of course, as you can see, it goes out here, goes to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, where you have the join between the African plate here and the South American plate here. This is South American plate here, and this is the African plate here. Now, at some point up here, yeah, right here. That's the African plate. And this would be another plate over here. This is spreading. This will spread massively during the pole shift. So we have a seam here. So that piece right there is going to slip. This whole piece of the North American plate is going to split during the pole shift. Prior to that, we call it the New Madrid fault line adjustment, which is due probably, I think, sometime in 2022 or early 23. The pole shift will occur in 2023. That's my opinion. But this line here represents the split line of the New Madrid fault line. Now, so it starts down the mouth of the St. Lawrence is going to open. That's because this is moving outwards and down, and it goes down the St. Lawrence. Now, by the way, I'll be getting into Toronto, Montreal, Ontario, and all the others, but and of course New Brunswick and Nova Scotia and Nova Scotia and but they do surprisingly well for the pole shift. But anyways, it goes right down the seaway under Lake Erie and Ontario, and down through central Ohio. And you can see in central Ohio, this is Zeta Talk information, that those differences in color in rock, that's where it's going to split right down in there. And then it jogs over to go to the New Madrid proper area, which is well known for its fault line. And then, of course, it goes down the Mississippi Valley. Mississippi Valley. And the Mississippi is, and then down into to finish its crack at the bottom of the plate here in the south. The Mississippi apparently is due to widen by up to 50 miles, and this whole new piece gets pushed into the Gulf. I don't know how far. Zeta Talk doesn't say, but it goes into the Gulf somewhat. When it does that, it compresses on the. Oh, it's just a big mess down here. But no, I'll get to that in a sec. So that's what's going on. So what is driving this pressure here is the rolling of South America. Let me pop back to South America. So we have the Arctic, which is basically not moving, and we have the upper portion of the North American plate, which is not going to move. So now in between where the drama is taking place, but first we have a tail or a tip of South America that's locked onto into the Antarctic plates. So it's not going to move. So what happens? Follow the cursor. South America moves like this, rolling to the west from the tip. So it rolls like that. Now it's moving now because we know Colombia and Peru and these have had a lot of action on the land, and this is the cutting edge as South America is being driven into the Pacific. Remember, the Atlantic is widening and the Pacific is shortening. Now, what is driving that is a larger question. I can explain it, but you can find that in other videos. But the pressure on South America is to roll into the Pacific, and so since North America does not want to move, what happens is that the Caribbean plate. Now let's take a look at this. Look carefully here. The South American plate extends under the south of the Caribbean plate, and actually goes around here and up here, like there, and to the center of the Atlantic, down the ridge, and goes down this way. So it's this portion here of the plate, of the South American plate, that's driving this action on the Caribbean Sea, making life very, very bad for the land bridge countries. They have a very, very bad time coming. When I do it's just because the Caribbean plate is going to lose. It gets pressed down, and when that happens, you get this big wash going into the Gulf. But that's part of the sequence of Earth change events leading up to the pole shift that you can find on Zeta Talk that I've got on my website. So we've got this pressure of the South American plate driving the lower portion of the North American plate into the Pacific. So this is the engine, the local engine that's causing this pressure on the eastern seaboard and the southern states and on the land bridge. That's the pressure that's happening. So at the same time we've got a compression zone here in California, and so what the upshot for Canada and BC is that because of this pressure is downward. Remember, up until the pole shift, this pressure persists. So what happens then the BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, the plains are being stretched this way in compensation for the pressure generated by South America on the lower portion of the North American plate. So that's what's going on, and it's the stretching is that. We're now go back to BC. So we got BC now. The right map here. I've done several maps. Okay. So we're gonna just change gears here for a little bit. Before we look at my map of safe locations, I want you to look at this. I'll leave this up on the channel for you to see. I found this great interactive map on every fault line in British Columbia. And that's what I really like about doing BC, is that they've done a lot of work and reporting on. Now you can find this stuff in the States too, but it was easy to find for work on Canada so far. So here you can see the thrust faults. This is the foreland belt. You may remember this here, you see. So this I consider to be a, quote, danger zone, unquote. And I'll discuss the quotes in a minute. So we've got these thrust faults going down here. So that's why I've labeled this area here as danger zone. Now if you live in the red zone now, just hold on, and there's good news coming. So I'm still going to label it a danger zone, because when I did the states, it's the same thing with the states. It's just the same system down through Washington, Oregon, and California. The same geology. And what the Zeta Talk was saying is that for the U.S., the western U.S., that this mountain range here is being driven east during the pole shift. That means because of course the subduction of the Pacific Ocean is raising the mountains here up, they say as high as 1,000 feet, and so it's also pushing them along. So I drew about a 50-mile, I think they said about 50 miles or so buffer zone along this edge here in these states here. That is total danger zone, because as the mountain ranges move during the pole shift, that hour of the pole shift, you can have rock just popping out of the ground. Rock strata just boom, right out of the ground. So it's very, very dangerous in this zone here, close to that. So the same would be said for Alberta over here. So we haven't got to Alberta yet. So pretty much we're on the ride. And if you're in southern BC, southeastern BC, you're on the ride here. So as far as that's concerned, you're good. You know, if you're in the mountains, you got to watch out for rockfall, all the kind of the typical caveats, or any. I don't think you'll have sinkholes, but lots of landslides, rockfall, and fault lines. So let's get back to the fault lines here. I'll discuss the movement of the thrusting of the mountain ranges going east during the pole shift. So that's why this is a danger area. Now, when you zoom in, you can use this map, and if you're, you know, where is that? Where is that anyway? Is that Prince George? Prince George is about there. Prince George is about there. Yeah, Prince George is not that bad, but when you go north, you get so you can zoom in on your town, and you see the lines get finer, and you could probably zoom in on your property if you live out here. So that's a great map for you. So consequently, you see these areas here with no fault lines, and they're on the ride, as I call on the ride. You're riding the mountains east. That's why these green areas are the way they are. And of course, you go back to the map, you can see practically no fault lines in northeastern BC. That's why you have this green area as a safe area. So when you look at this map, you can see obviously this is of course the Alaska Panhandle, but I've drawn a danger zone here because you're going to have the subduction action of the Pacific coast. As I said, Bella Bella, and Prince Rupert are toast. So this is a danger area. The reason why it's so wide is because if you zoom in, you'll see, use another map here, you can see all these fjords running up there. I call them fjords, inlets. So the pole shift waves are going to drive way up into here. So you've got, you know, if you zoom in, I doubt if anyone's living out here, but if you're in Prince George or Bella Bella, you may want to get into these because these will be potentially safe areas. Although in valleys near the coast, you'll have the subducting plates heating the ground, and you can have boiling rivers. So you have to be up from a valley, and to avoid the heat of subduction if you happen to find yourself having to escape into these areas. So that's why that danger zone was so wide. It's because of the pole shift waves are going to thrust up into these areas. Now, the thing is, we're told the waves are from 600 to 700 feet. Certainly in the Pacific they will be, because it's compressing, so there's less space for the water to go. But these aren't 600 to 700 foot waves. These are 600 to 700 feet wave fronts. There's a huge difference between a wave front and a wave. A wave is simply an increase in height and then a drop as it passes, as it finishes. A wave front, you've got increase in height and it stays that way because the ocean has the same elevation behind the wave. So that type of volume of water pushes all up into here. So that's why that area there is labeled as danger zone so far up. So I'll cover Vancouver Island and Haida Gwaii separately in a separate section. Now these other areas here that I haven't labeled dangerous or safe, they aren't necessarily dangerous. It just depends on your location. And again, I encourage people to look at that fault line map to see how much fault lines there are and whether your property is on a fault line or not. By and large, I'm sure there is much safety to be found in these areas as well. So that's pretty much BC, and I do believe I've covered all of the aspects of BC, the safe zones, danger zones. Oh yes, the all important thing I almost forgot. Okay, so Zeta Talk says that BC will do quite well during the pole shift, except of course the coastal areas. Now, what is going to alleviate the danger zone somewhat will be that stretching that I talked about earlier. So this stretching here is going to be, now this is Zeta Talk information, is going to alleviate the compression that is taking place in the foreland belt that I believe is going to take the movement of the Rockies eastward. And so because the continent is stretching, it takes the pressure off the underneath rock in these areas. Now, it's still a danger zone, but if you have the option to move out, great. If you don't, then take a look at these, because you can zoom in on these guys in the foreland belt, and if you're not on a fault line, then you may do quite well in there. So that is the good news for those people who are living in this area here. So that concludes this little bit on British Columbia. And so now we'll move into Vancouver Island and Haida Gwaii. Okay, let's look at Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island, according to Zeta Talk, is pushed 100 miles north and is raised up about 100 feet in elevation during the pole shift. Now, originally, I had thought that because Vancouver Island is, as I said earlier, is Wrangellia, and it comprises part of the BC coast, and of course also Haida Gwaii, and of course it also is part of Alaska. Apparently it split up at one point, and some of it ended up in Alaska, but the portion down in BC is like this, part of the BC coast. So I was thinking that we would have a part of the BC coast coming with Vancouver Island, but after reading Zeta Talk again and again on Vancouver Island, they say that if you are on Vancouver Island and you have some goods for the aftertime supplies stored on the BC coast, you may have trouble finding it afterwards, after the pole shift. So that strongly suggests that Vancouver Island is going to move and leave the coast, its coastal Wrangellia component behind. And I think that is probably best seen really like so when you consider you've got the Johnson Strait, the Georgia Strait, the space here between the well, especially in here where you have Rangelia with a large gap in its construction, and a crack through here and here. So it looks to me then that this is a weak point in these areas here, a weak point in Rangelia's, this piece of Rangelia here. So then indeed it's going to split off because of the weak point. So that's why I had backed up, and I went ahead and went with a separate Vancouver Island, going with Haida Gwaii. Now I believe the Haida Gwaii will move with Vancouver Island because it's obviously it is part of Rangelia, Haida Gwaii that is. But when the pole shift shakes it loose and causes it to move northward, that means the rock underneath the sea between the two islands is going to be under compression and therefore not likely to break. So that's why I believe that Vancouver Island will push Haida Gwaii northward with it by about 100 miles. So that's how I ended up with this particular map. So now I want to discuss, now we discussed its movement, and also we need to discuss also the Leech River fault line. Now in this other map here, you can, if you zoom in, you can't see it that well there, but I have another map here with here, yeah, you can see it better here. So down, no you can't actually. I have a better map somewhere. Here it is. So you can see this is the Leech River fault line here going through Old Leechtown. This is a different plate material here. So that's why the Leech River fault line is going to break during the actually before the pole shift. So we know that we have a sequence of events that's going to occur in the rundown to the pole shift, and those events look something like this. India goes under the waves, Western Australia goes down. That's the kickoff, because of the Himalayas is the main lock point. That's why the Himalayas are so high. So this is the main lock here. Once this releases, it sets up a chain of reaction over months as these other plates adjust. I've done other videos on it. It's quite complex, but anyways, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then when you get to the Japan quakes, now remember the Pacific quake plate is compressing. So when you get southern Japan, will have massive quakes, and a few weeks later, northern Japan has a massive set. Now, there's a time delay between the two. So first southern, then northern Japan. When northern Japan goes, notice that this is actually part of the North American plate here. This is actually North American plate right in here. So interesting, this says plate boundary uncertain. But at any rate, we can be certain that when the north goes, oh, now you gotta, there's something that may explain this. Might help if you realize that, well, you can't actually see it in this, but the southern Japan is on the Eurasian plate, and northern Japan is on the North American plate. So the two, Japan goes across, straddles two different plates. That's why you have, when you have the southern plates, they affect other areas. Southern plate gets its earthquakes. It doesn't affect Victoria, but when the northern Japan gets its quakes, then of course it crosses as part of, and that's when the shock goes across and hits the Leech River fault here, right? You can see it right there, and that does an adjustment, and it floods Victoria with 10 feet of water, up to 10 feet of water, I believe. Not 10 feet, it's something like 5 feet of water. So that'll be a major event. That'll be within the sequence that here. Next one will be the New Madrid. So on and on it goes. So that's the Leech River fault line. I wanted to mention for people on Vancouver Island, especially in Victoria or Sydney, rather Souk, and up along the southern coast of Pacific coast of Vancouver Island. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So that's an event. Now the other thing about Vancouver Island are volcanoes, which also affects BC in general. Now all the volcanoes along the spine of the Rockies are definitely going to erupt. Now the any volcano that is less than 10, that has erupted less than 10,000 years ago will go. Now that's Baker, Garibaldi, all these guys in here, and including Nazca. So Nazca is a little farther to the east. It's an older volcano, but it's going to erupt. But the good news is these volcanoes, the prevailing winds. Now, we are actually going to be going to a different prevailing wind cell. So we are in the westerlies now, in the mid-latitude cell, but when the pole shift hits, North American continent and South America lay on its side, and we are along about 20 degrees latitude. You can see that here. I've shown you already. So we are along this rear right here. So very, very nice and warm for people who like that kind of thing. Personally, I like the cold, but anyways, we're going to warm weather. So what happens here then is we move from the mid-latitude area down to the Hadley cell. And in the Hadley cell, the winds blow in this direction. They blow towards the equator in a southeast direction, like that. So that means when here we are here, actually, this is a good map for this, I drew up. This is the after time equator. So here's Vancouver Island. I believe that's Vancouver Island. This actually is after the pole melt, actually. You can see this is that's Vancouver Island there. Oh, there's the Olympic Peninsula. Okay, so these volcanoes are here. Nazca is not so much of a threat because there aren't very many people living. But anyways, west, the current west of Nazca. So if you're living in west of the Nazca volcano, you really shouldn't be, because you're going to get ash fall, especially if you're within a couple 100 miles or 300 miles of it. In the case of the volcanoes on the coast, they're going to blow out towards the Pacific. So they all blow out this way. They follow this. All the volcanoes blow out like that. Okay, so if you're currently east of a volcano, then you're in a good situation. But don't be of the current west, because you'll get ash fall in the after time. And that's for a long time too. They talk about 20 years, up to 20 years. Here we have British Columbia, and we have Vancouver Island, and I believe we've covered all the things about Vancouver Island, other than just to make a mention that Rangelia moved northeast, so the pressure on the globe is to push northward. That's why and this is human science, and that's why I think this is a good reminder that as to why supports the Zeta Talk comment that Vancouver Island moves northward. So that concludes my discussion of Vancouver Island and in BC, in the Pacific for the after time, nice and warm. Oh, I will comment on this, is I know for sure that the action on Vancouver Island will be massively up and down energy during the pole shift. Up and down. So there'll be lots of bouncing up. I know that for certain. So that's Vancouver Island. Thank you for watching. I wanted to take a closer look at Vancouver Island. This is heywhatsthat.com sea level. I'll have this link up on the channel. Set at 570. It won't do 575. It does 574 for some reason. This is set for the pole melt. So this is what Vancouver Island is going to look like. Now, of course, as I've said earlier in my earlier piece on Vancouver Island, is that it will move 100 miles north along the coast there, but probably a lot of these islands will be destroyed in here as it moves or damaged, because there's going to be a split there, right? It's going to split off from the coast there. But we've got most of the population in Vancouver Island, as far as I understand, is in the southern end, in Victoria, where I live. Now, the pole melt here is a good indication as to what's going to happen with the pole shift waves when they come in. You can clearly see that Port Alberni is toast. So if you live in Port Alberni, you have to get up the hill because the ocean is going to come rushing in and funnel all through here. Now remember that the ocean waves are not just a wave, they are the full height of the, if a wave is 500 feet high, there's 500 feet of elevation of ocean behind it. This is a type of wave, a pole shift wave. This is not your tsunami. So it's going to wash all up in there. So you can see what's going to happen to Port Alberni. So Port Alberni is a danger zone. Obviously, Victoria is a danger zone. Now, as I was saying earlier, you can see by the pole melt where the low areas are. So you're going to have, now of course before the pole shift, probably 6 months, 8 months perhaps before the pole shift itself, maybe sooner, the leach fault line through here is going to give way. So that's going to open up a bit, and of course going to be a lot of damage downtown Victoria. So Victoria, of course, is toast. By the way, I didn't mention this directly in my piece on BC in general, but all of Vancouver is gone, is totally gone. So if you live in Vancouver and you're pole shift aware, you know what you have to do. And again, the waves are going to push way up into here, way up into this channel here. So all up in there. So all this, you've got to be high on these hills. If you're going to be up in here, you have to be high. Probably 800 feet. And don't be at the end of an inlet. So don't have your camp here, because it's going to funnel and increase and push up these. Better to be along here than at the end of a long valley. So that is to say, too low. You might got to be high. So, and as I said earlier, these towns, Bella Bella and Prince Rupert, are gone. Back to Vancouver Island. So, of course, all the towns on Vancouver Island are going to be destroyed because they're all on the coast. So, as you can see, you have lots of high land to go to, and but all these islands are definitely, towns are definitely gone after the pole shift. Of course, we've got another channel up here that'll probably push through into Langford. This is being Langford in here, Gold Stream, and may even push right through across the island. Also, I mean, I've always thought, well, maybe, possibly the pole shift waves will be a little bit less in the strait here, in the Strait of Georgia. Partly because the waves have to work their way through and go in the Strait of Juan de Fuca, of course, and be bled off into the pressure will be released into Seattle, and also be driven up into there's room to move up into the Fraser Valley. So they have to go through these Gulf Islands. So I believe that the waves will be less on this side. Now, of course, we have to keep in mind that Vancouver Island is moving, during this whole process. So who knows how that's going to affect the funneling and the movement of water. I would say that if it moves, it's going to create extra space in here again. So I believe that the waves won't be as bad from Mill Bay, Duncan, up to Campbell River and north of Campbell River. The waves will be less. That's what I believe. But definitely along the coast of west coast of Vancouver Island, Tofino, it's going to push all the way through. And in fact, you can see it's going to push right through here, right over there. Now, again, this is pole melt, but it just indicates that this land here is below 574. So the water could easily push through here. So I just wanted to mention that about Vancouver Island. It's going to be a great place for the aftertime. Okay, that concludes Vancouver Island and BC in my Canadian pole shift safe location series. Next will be, of course, will be Alberta. Thanks for watching.